Ever twisted your ankle and immediately thought, oh no, is it broken? Do I need an x-ray? It's such a common worry.
Yeah, it really is. And figuring out what to do next can feel a bit like guesswork sometimes.
Right. But what if there was a sort of smarter, simpler way to get a clearer idea if an x-ray is actually needed?
Well, that's exactly what we're getting into today. We're doing a deep dive into the Ottawa Ankle Rules. Think of them as a kind of cheat sheet, really, for knowing when that ankle pain might actually mean you need an x-ray.
Okay, the Ottawa Ankle Rules.
Yeah, our mission, if you like, is to understand the key criteria from these rules so you can feel much more clued in about what's going on if, you or someone you know takes a tumble.
And these aren't just random guesses, are they? The sources we looked at lay out really specific evidence-based criteria to help make that decision.
Absolutely, they're very well researched.
So let's jump right in. When does an ankle injury actually need an x-ray, according to these guidelines?
Okay, well, the first thing to consider is there pain around your ankle bones, what doctors call the malleolar zone? If there's no pain in that specific area, then honestly, the Ottawa Ankle Rules don't really apply.
Right, so ankle bone pain is the starting point. Makes sense. So assuming there is pain there, what are the additional things that would then signal an x-ray might be needed?
So there are three main indicators. The first one is tenderness, when you actually touch a very specific spot on the outer ankle bone.
Outer ankle,
Wow.
like the bony bit that sticks out.
Exactly. That prominent bump, the lateral malleolus, and then also tenderness about 6 centimeters. That's roughly, 2.5 inches up the back edge of the fibula. That's the outer bone in your lower leg.
Okay, so it's a really defined area.
Very defined. It's not just like general achiness. It's point tenderness when you press there. That precision is actually quite interesting.
Okay, specific sore spot on the outside bone and a bit up the back of that lower leg bone. Got it. What's the second flag?
The second is pretty much the same idea, but on the inner ankle bone. Again, not just a general ache. It's pain when you press right on the tip of the medial malleolus.
That's the bump on the inside.
That's the one, yeah. The bump on the inside. And then same again, about 6 centimeters up the back edge of the tibia, which is the main inner bone of your lower leg.
Huh. So just like the outside, it's a clearly defined, specific area you're testing.
Exactly.
So just to be clear, we're looking for pain when you poke very specific spots either on the outer or inner ankle bones, and that tenderness goes about maybe 2 finger widths up the back edge of those lower leg bones.
That's a good way to picture it, yeah.
And the third thing, what's the third criterion?
The third crucial one is all about whether you can actually put weight on your injured leg. Specifically, it's the inability to take 4 steps where you're properly bearing weight.
4 steps. Right.
And that's both immediately after the injury happens and when you're being checked out, say, in the emergency department or by a doctor.
4 weight-bearing steps. So even if you're sort of hobbling or really limping badly, if you can manage to put some weight through it for 4 steps, that counts.
It does, yeah. The guidelines specifically mention that even limping counts. As long as you can manage those 4 steps, it counts as being able to bear weight. The key is simply, can you do it, yes or no?
Wow. It's fascinating how that simple mobility test tells us so much.
It really does.
Okay, so just to recap the triggers, pain in the ankle bone area, PLUS, either tenderness on those very specific bony spots outside or inside, or you just can't manage 4 steps. It seems surprisingly simple.
It does seem simple when you lay it out like that.
So what's the thinking behind these particular things? Why these touch points in the walking test?
Well, the main goal here is to reliably pick out the ankle injuries where there's a higher chance of fracture, something that really needs looking at with an x-ray.
Okay, finding the likely breaks.
Exactly. But at the same time, the rules are designed to help us avoid unnecessary x-rays, which is important for a few reasons.
Like avoiding radiation.
Yeah, that's one big reason, reducing radiation exposure. But also it helps keep healthcare costs down, and it eases the burden on busy emergency rooms and radiology departments. It's really about being smarter with resources.
Right, efficiency and effectiveness. Getting the right people the imaging they need without sort of overdoing it for everyone else. It sounds like these checks have actually made a pretty big difference.
Oh, absolutely. They really streamline that initial assessment. It lets healthcare providers focus their attention and resources where they're most likely needed. It's quite remarkable, actually, that these few simple physical checks can be so good at ruling out fractures.
Saving people from x-rays they don't need.
Potentially millions of people, yes, saved from unnecessary radiation.
And you mentioned earlier these rules aren't just for ankles. There are others.
That's right. The Ottawa Rules concept is a framework There are similar criteria for foot injuries, too.
Oh, interesting. How do those work?
Pretty similar principle. For the foot, it's about pain in the midfoot zone, plus tenderness when you press on the base of the fifth metatarsal, that's the bone along the outside edge of your foot,
Okay.
or the navicular bone, which is more on the inside arch area. Or, again, that same inability to bear weight for 4 steps.
Same 4-step rule again?
Yep. And there are also Ottawa knee rules for knee injuries. It just shows how this kind of systematic approach, this checklist idea, can be really valuable for assessing different common injuries.
Makes sense. A consistent way to approach things across different joints. Now, are there situations where maybe these rules aren't the best guide? When might a doctor or nurse need to use their judgment beyond just these criteria?
That's a really, really important point. Clinical judgment always comes first. There are definitely situations where just rigidly following the rules might not be the right call.
Like what, for example?
Well, if someone is intoxicated maybe, or just not really able to cooperate properly with the examination, it makes it hard to reliably check for that specific tenderness or even assess if they can walk.
Right, if they can't communicate clearly or follow instructions properly. That makes sense. What else?
Also, if there are other significant injuries, what we sometimes call distracting injuries, they might mask the ankle pain or just make a proper assessment difficult.
Ah, okay.
And if someone has a condition that causes reduced sensation in their legs, like some types of nerve damage, they might not actually feel the tenderness the rules rely on, even if there's underlying damage.
Another good point.
And one more, if there's really massive swelling around the ankle, sometimes the swelling can be so bad it's physically impossible to accurately press on those specific bony spots to check for tenderness.
So, okay, while the rules are a fantastic tool, they're not foolproof. They're not meant to replace a doctor's overall assessment, especially in tricky situations.
Exactly. They support decision-making. They don't replace it. You have to understand the context.
And who do these rules generally apply to? Is it just for adults or?
No, they're actually validated for a pretty wide age range. The Ottawa Ankle Rules are considered applicable for individuals aged 2 years and older.
2 years and up. Okay, so most kids and all adults. Now, remembering all those details, lateral, malleolus, medial, 6 centimeters, 4 steps, it can be a bit of a mouthful. Is there a simple way to remember the key bits?
There is. We can try a little mnemonic. How about this? Think laterally or medially touchy or can't take 4 steps.
Okay. Laterally or medially touchy or can't take 4 steps.
Yeah, LA for the lateral outer side, ME for the medial inner side where you're trying for that specific tenderness, and 4 for the weight-bearing steps. Just bundles those key extra criteria together.
Laterally or medially touchy or can't take 4 steps. I like it. That's actually pretty catchy and easy to recall.
Hopefully helpful.
Definitely. So wrapping this up then, what's the main thing you want people listening to take away from our deep dive today?
I think the biggest takeaway is that the Ottawa Ankle Rules give us a really clear, evidence-based approach to help figure out when an ankle x-ray is probably needed. It really boils down to having pain in that ankle bone area, plus either that very specific tenderness on the bony bits inside or out, or simply not being able to take those 4 weight-bearing steps.
And for us, listening to this, it gives us a much better handle on that initial decision-making if we, or maybe someone we know, unfortunately twists an ankle. It sort of empowers you to understand what the healthcare team might be looking for.
Precisely that. It offers a quick insight into the rationale, behind recommending an x-ray or maybe deciding against one right away. And it brings up a point maybe for you to mull over. How do these kinds of standardized clinical guidelines, like the Ottawa Rules, actually impact healthcare decisions and the way we use medical resources more broadly?
That's a really interesting thought, beyond just the ankle.
Exactly. You might even find it interesting to look up the Ottawa foot and knee rules we mentioned, just to see how this systematic thinking applies elsewhere.
It's definitely food for thought. And if you are keen to explore more practical medical knowledge like this, do check out passthemsra.com and also freemsra.com.
Yeah, they're great resources for digging deeper.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for this really clear and insightful deep dive.
My pleasure.